Learning about Gemara. Today's daf is daf Samach Aleph, and we are right in the middle of the sugya. Just a quick recap. We were learning before that if somebody serves avodah zara, so there's different categories. If one serves avodah zara, you chayiv skila. If it's avodah, which is the normal way of doing avodah for that particular avodah zara, then obviously it's called kedarka, the conventional way, you're chayiv misa. If it's the non-conventional way, so but it's not ifut of covered, it's edifying, it's honorable, so then it depends. There are four avodas that we list that regardless of whether it's the conventional way or not, you are chayiv. For example, if you shecht, or if you do libations, or if you bow down, or you roast either incense or whatever it is, these, even if it's loy kedarka, you're chayiv misa. Other malachas, if it's loy kedarka, if it's not the conventional way, and it's kavadik, you did an aveda, but you're not chayiv misa. And then we have avodah, which is derech bezoin, in a degrading way, and there generally you're not chayiv unless that's the conventional way. Like we said, the bal pa'or is a unique avodah zara where you defecate before the avodah zara, or a markulis where they either throw stones at it or you remove stones. Both of them is considered idol worshiping for that. And then we bring up, how do we know that? Because even though Torah says you shouldn't worship the serve avodah zara, it says that a zeveyach yechram, that if you shecht, you should be put to death. So we darshan says zeveyach lalahim yechram, to the idols. So we darshan from there that why did it talk about zeveyach? Tell you that zeveyach, which is an internal avodah for the base of Migdash, and the other two avodas as well as libations are included in zeveyach. And ishtachava, which is not internal, is mentioned again as well, that you shouldn't bow down. Why is it saying talk about bow down? And that is because it says that you will serve other idols. V'ishtachlem, you bow down is a terrible thing. Why talk about bowing? All avedas are no good. By bowing, even if it's not conventional, you're a chai, but that's it. So Rabbi Bar Chanan asked the question that how do you know that Zaveach is expansive to include the other internal avedas? And the Ishtachava is limited only to Ishtachava, maybe that Ishtachava comes to include any Avodah which is Bakovidik. I don't care if it's darker, like a darker, conventional, not conventional. And Zavech is coming to teach you another din altogether. The din is that if you shecht and you have in mind, that's what his question was. You shecht and you had in mind another avodah. You shechted normally the animal. You had in mind that you'll eat the fats for avodah zara. I should tell you that is also considered avodah zara. Mechashin avodah according to the Shlokish, who says that generally speaking it's not avodah zara, but this pasuk comes to tell you it is. And we said that the Shlokish was talking about, we repudiated that because we said that we rejected this question because the Shlokish was talking about the animal, whether it's kosher or not kosher. He and Rabbi Yechon are arguing, but definitely the person is over than avodah zara. So we're up to the Gemara Samach Aleph Amad Aleph. Amalei Rab Acha Medifta Ravina. About 10 lines from the top of the page. This question that we just discussed, that Rabbi Bar Chanan asked Abaya, that maybe Zaveyach is limited only to a halacha teaching you about Zavech, and Yishtachava is coming to teach you that all malachas, anyway, you serve an idol, if it's covered away, then you're chayiv. So we're up to 10 lines from the top of the page. And we're saying, Amalei Rab Acha Medifta Ravina. So Rab Acha from Difta asked of Samach Aleph Amar Aleph, asked Ravina. This is Rabbi Chanan asked Abaye that maybe Zaveach is limited only to teach you halacha that if you shecht an animal, you had in mind that the fats you'll do for avodah zara is an aveda, and Ishtachava is coming to teach you that any form of serving any idol, as long, even if it's non-conventional, as long as it's a choshev way of serving, you are chayiv. Like, for example, embracing and kissing. So, let us say, that's what his question was. So let me understand. Excuse me. The pasuk says, "Be careful when you go to Israel. Do not join the nations who are there, and don't ask." Let me find out how they serve their idols, and I can do the same. You're saying Rabbi's question was that I don't care what's the normal way of serving, as long as you serve it in a chashuv way, in a bakavdik way, you're chayiv. So therefore, he says, why would you say eicha yavoyu? So he says, according to him, anyway, you serve an idol, you're chayiv because it's a chashuv way. So why does the pasuk say that you're only even aveda? When you say eicha yavdu, how in the world do you serve the idol? Who cares? Anyway, you serve it, you're chayiv. What way is it that you serve an idol and you're not chayiv? If a shtachava is coming to teach you that any way you're serving in a distinguished way, you're chayiv. Lemutimai, what is it coming to exclude? Says the Gemara, if you tell me it's coming to exclude, if you do a degrading way of avodah, in a case of the zoifrim, in a case of the normal way is, let's say, to do shchita, and you do something else which is degrading. Is that if that's what's coming to exclude, mihishtachava I already know from shtachava that only by kavodiker ways you are chayiv. Why do I have to need a pasuk that you only chayiv if you ask what's the conventional way of doing it? And you're telling me it's coming to exclude, but if you do it in a degrading way, you're not chayiv. If you do it in a degrading way, I already know from shtachava that I don't care which way you do it as long as it's bekavedik, not if it's degrading. My shtachava that a kibbut has to be in an edifying way. I've called that a kibbut has to be in an edifying way. Elamute comes to exclude hapoyer atzmi lamarkulis. It comes to exclude if you do it in a degrading way to an avodah zarah, which the way to serve it is other degrading ways. So you just said from Yishtachava, I know that you're chayiv even if it's non-conventional. But you think only if it's makavedik. But what about let's say markulis, which already is an avodah zarah, which the way you serve it is in a degrading way, and instead of using its normal degrading way, I'll use another degrading way. I'll defecate. It's not the normal way for markulis. Then you throw stones. So that's why I need the pasuk echi avodu to tell you that even though markulis is the degrading way, it has to be done its way. Not if you do another way of serving it in a degrading way, that would not be chayv, and that's why you need echi avodah. Because something I never thought the entire avodah for this carbon is in a degrading way. I've called bezoin. So anything that you do which is disgraceful should be counted as a way to kamash from. Says the Gemara, Elahod, Amar Rabbi Lezer, and ask a question. So this is what Rabbi Lezer says. Rabbi Lezer says, Behema, how do you know if somebody shechts an animal, Lemakulish or chayiv? You would have thought that makulish maybe the only way you're chayiv is if you do degrading ways. But if you do it in a chosh way, like shechting before makulish, we said before shechting anyway you're chayiv. I don't care if it's the normal way, not normal way. But what about an avodah like makulish? That the entire avodah is in a degrading way. That's how you serve it. Will you be chayiv if you do it, let's say, shechting, which will come the away? Now, and Rabbi Lezer brings a pasuk. I don't want you to shecht anymore to the demons, to the shadim, and and if I don't need it to tell me the conventional way, because then I know the chsiv eicha yav, I already know that you're chayiv. If you do things in a conventional way, you say, I want to find out what the goyim did in Canaan in the eicha, how they served it. So we know that any way that you did in the normal way, you're chayiv. So what does this pasuk say? You don't shecht to the demons, telling you that even in a non-conventional way, now that even non-conventional way, shechting you're always chayiv. But according to Rabbi Bar Chanan's question, he's saying that the word ishtachava teaches you that you're chayiv wherever you are, whether it's conventional or non-conventional, as long as it's chashuv. So shechting, which is a chashuv way of serving an idol, should be chayiv. We know from ishtachava. What are we learning extra from the Yizbechu oid as if chaim don't shecht it to the demons that we don't already know from ishtachava, according to Rabbi's question? So we answered there's two kinds of shechting. Shechting, which is a bakavadiker way, which is in a distinguished way, and then there's shechting because you want to spite the Eibishter. You want to say, I don't believe in Eibishter, and you prove it, I'm going to shecht for an avodah zarah. So not so much because you believe in avodah zarah, but more because you want to spite. So it doesn't come under ishtachava. This is not a dignified way of serving avodah zarah because your intention is not really to serve because you believe in avodah zarah. You want to show to spite the Eibishter, spite the Torah. That we learn out from he thought we learn out from that we learn out from the possible Yizbechu oid as if chaim l'sidim. Regardless, I don't want you to shech before these demons. Now, after Hashem says the Gemara, Rav once lost a few cows. So imagine he's all confounded there. He's also all confused. He lost money, and he's very anxious trying to find the money. And yet, as the Lamed points out, Pogabei Rabba, he met Rabba, Ramalei Masisna Dodi. Rabba asked Rabnuna a question. Here Rabnuna is running around looking for his animals. He needs his parnasa. And Rabba asked him a question, and he stopped, he paused whatever he was doing, and he concentrated on the learning. Shows you how their entire lives revolved around learning Torah. He said to him, it says if somebody serves avodah zarah, so my question is as follows. It seems it's Mal Mishnah Ovid. The only time you're liable, you're considered that you're culpable for avodah zarah is if you physically went ahead and you served the avodah zarah. But if he said, I will go ahead and serve a zara, for that, you're not chayiv. Yet, we learned later on, which is going to be later next Mishnah, we learned, if a person says, yes, I will serve a base, I will serve an idol, or I will go and serve an idol, or or we'll go together as a group, and we will go. Somebody was seduced, and he said, okay, I'll go. He's amal over there, you're chayiv. Our Mishnah seems to say only chayiv even if you actually serve, and over there it seems to say just by saying you will serve, you're already chayiv. Which one is it? Amalei said to him, "You're right. As soon as he said to the seducer, we'll go and serve, I'll join you. You're chayiv. So how come our Mishnah says that you're chayiv only if you actually serve? Over here, Amalei, but our Mishnah is talking about. He says, "Eina mekabla alai el baba." You make it conditional. He said, "I am not going to accept this idol as my god only when I actually serve it." That's why in our Mishnah you're not liable unless you physically serve it. But otherwise, if a person says, "I'm going to go to Avodah Zarah," he's already over. Says he went Rabbi Yosef says, an interesting Rashi before told us a few days ago that if a person that will do by different eating a goy is by a person, as soon as he says that, even though he says he'll do an aveda, he can always change his mind and have charata. And it seems that by Avodah Zarah, the moment he says I will go, he's already chai. Just for saying that. Rabbi Yosef said, I don't understand. Tanoi, Shoklim, Amul, what do you think? You just brought two mishnahs there and that's it? I want to know Tanoi. It's actually a machlekes Tanoim, but the saying, I will go, serve Avodah Zarah, is already chayiv. Which two Tanoim? The time, look, the moment I say, if a person says, boy, a person says, Reuben walks around saying, guys, I'm God, I want you to serve me. Rameir says, chayiv. That he's already considered a maces seducer just by saying that I am God and serve me. He's already considered a maces and he's chayv misa. Rabbi Yehuda says potter. Why? People actually started bowing down to him. Then surely he's chayv because he made himself avodah zarah. See what it says, don't turn yourself into an avodah zarah, into an idol. So I'm talking about if people are actually serving you as an idol. Keep pleading with the You just said it. I'm God and serve me, but nobody serves you. It's the words. Rameir holds the words alone is already sufficient to be called a Avodah Zarah, and that's the opinion that says. So Abai wants to say the same thing here. That if he says I will go serve Avodah Zarah, he's already chayiv. That's the Mishnah later. And Rabbi Yehuda saw the dibur la milsi. And Rabbi Yehuda says the words are not enough. You actually have to do it, and that's our Mishnah here. So it's actually not just you try to reconcile the two Mishnahs. It's a machlekes tanaim. That's what Rabbi Yosef initially wanted to say. Then Hadram Rabbi Yosef, and afterwards Rabbi Yosef reconsidered. He said la milsi damri. I'm wrong. That feel Rabbi Yehuda. Even according to Rabbi Yehuda, even Rabbi Yehuda agrees. The moment he said words, I will, let's go and serve Avodah Zarah, and you said yes, let's go, you're chayiv. That Rabbi Yehuda says la'olam ein chayiv. Rabbi Yehuda says you're not chayiv. Ad sheyemer, until he says is if somebody seduce you or try to induce you to do Avodah Zarah, and you said Evod, I will serve, Eilich Evod, I will go and serve, Neilech, I will go serve. Rabbi Yehuda agrees that those words alone is already chayiv. You're already chayiv. However, the case that we're talking about here is where a guy gets up and says, I am God, come and serve me. And nothing happened. And that's the machlekes. Now, why is the machlekes there? Is he presents himself that he is the idol, he's the God. And people said in, yes. When people say yes, are they just humoring you or they actually mean it? That people take him seriously and therefore the Srei Avodah Zarah. The Indik Amrle Kushtu, when they said yes, they meant it. They think that you're nuts. Meimat Amri, they say, he's a human just like we are. He eats and drinks and sleeps and does everything like we do. What makes him a god? So they don't take him seriously. But Indik Amri, when they say yes, they're just taunting him, teasing him. So basically, there's no argument. So getting back to our Mishnah then, how do you reconcile the two Mishnahs? So everyone says as soon as you said you'll work serve Avodah Zarah, you already serve Avodah Zarah. Why is our Mishnah say even only if you physically do it? Umastis, and the difference is can be yochid hanisis, can be rabim hanisasim. It depends if you're just as an individual that you were convinced into worship Avodah Zarah, or if you're part of a whole group of people, a herd mentality. Here he says, Yachid le'mimlech. A Yachid won't change his mind, he's embarrassed, whatever it is, but he will follow him. So therefore, once you made up, you said, I'll go, you're already chayiv. Rabbim, Rabbim, they can all change their mind. There's no individual here, so that's so embarrassed, and they won't they won't follow him afterwards. That is how Rashi learns the Gemara. There's actually another version of the Gemara which is exactly the opposite. That a herd mentality, you follow the herd, and you won't, even though on your own you might reconsider and say, "This is crazy, I won't do it." So you will change your mind. But if everyone else is doing it, you're embarrassed to be different, so you will follow the herd mentality. How do I know there's a difference between a single person and a majority? It says a pasuk, "Loi say v'loi." Don't agree with him. V'loi sishma. Don't matter. Mesa tries to convince you to do avodas zarah. Don't listen to him. Don't agree with him. V'loi sishma elav. Do not listen to him. Sounds like from here. If you agreed and you listened, chayiv. You're already chayiv, even though you didn't actually serve the avodas zarah. So we have to make a difference between, and it's written in a singular form. So this sort of supports Rashi's version. It's written in singular form. That means in single, if you're alone and just by listening, you're chayiv because you're not going to change your mind. But if it's a rabbim, then you will. Asa Abai says this distinction between a single and a major and a group of people, I don't think it's right. Me shiny. Is there a difference between Nisa Rabbi and Nisa Yochid between the two? But Tan it says in Pasuk, it says in Pasuk if your brother, son of your mother, tried to convince you, or your son-in-law, whatever it is, let's go serve Avodah Zarah. It says there that you should have Rachmanis and all that. Echad, and it seems from there, Echad, it makes the Nocher Hanisas, the Echad Rabbim Hanasasim. This is what the Brisa says. It doesn't matter whether on the receiving end was an individual who tried to convince you, or you're a group of people try to convince you, and yet yet there's a difference in the laws of Avodah Zarah whether you're an individual, you're chayiv skila, or whether you're a community or an ir hanadachas where you all get you're chayiv saiv, you're chayiv cherv with a sword. So in Torah it makes a distinction. An individual, first of all, you get much more stringent punishment, you get skila, but your asses don't get destroyed. But Rabbi Mikal Yochid, on the other hand, when you have a group of people different than a Yochid, lahakal al gufam, it's easier on their guf that they only get chereb, they don't get skila. But we're machmir on their money. We're machmir on their money. That what? That they lose all their assets. Right? We bring it to the main street and we burn them. But clearly from here, that these are the only two differences between a Yachid and a Rabbi. But this is where they're different. But in every other respect, it's exactly the same thing. So what he told me on Maisa that by a single person, you will never change your mind if you're Chayiv as soon as you said it. But by a Rabbi, even if you said it, you can always change your mind. There's no other differences. I'll tell you the difference between missions. One is when you convince yourself to go ahead and do an avodah zarah, and here you convinced by others, and that is the pi atzma. If you convince yourself, just like you convince yourself to worship, to serve avodah zarah, you can change your mind tomorrow and wake up and say, "No, what am I doing? I'm crazy." But the pi achedim, if somebody else is relentlessly trying to convince you, you're convinced, and you will continue because he will constantly convince you to continue until you serve avodah zarah, so you won't change your mind. So as soon as you said elech v'navod or nelech v'navod, you're already chayiv. How do I know there's a difference if they self-seduce to somebody else? It said, don't agree with him, but don't listen to him. Because somebody else out there is master from there. The moment you agree, you're chayiv, because somebody else is convincing you. But if you did it on your own, you're not chayiv. Rabbi says, I'll give you another answer. Even if somebody else tries to convince you, sometimes we'll say you change your mind, you're not chayiv till you actually serve the avodah zarah, and sometimes not. What's the difference? If he glamorizes the avodah zarah, then we say that you're not going to this avodah zarah. This is he eats, kach drinks, kach bativa, kach maria. This is the good things that does, the bad things. These are this are wonderful avodah zarah. He obviously he glamorizes this avodah zarah. Then we say that you're not going to change your mind. But here it's over a case where he did not glamorize. Then you could always change your mind. Because if it doesn't glamorize it, then one day you wake up and say, hey, why am I following this? What's so special about it? How do I know that there's a difference whether you glamorize it? Then we'll say that as soon as you said you will serve it, you will serve it, you're chayiv. And if it's not glamorized, maybe you'll change your mind. Because it says a pasuk, and when Hashem says that I don't want you to replicate the behavior of the goyim around you, it says a pasuk, from the gods of the nations, that surrounds you. Those are close to you, or those who are distant from you. What's the relevance of the avodah zarah? Is close to you or distant to you? If you're going to serve it, mali krayvim mali l'chaykim. How does that come into the equation? Hachikam. This is what he says here. Mitivasen shel krayvim. When you look around you, those the avodah zarah you do know, you see how worthless it is. You'll understand that avodah zarah that's far away from you as well, how worthless it is. So we see from that what this person they're trying to convince you that avodah zarah is glamorous and it glorifies how great that avodah zarah is. And the pasuk is saying, just look around you, you see that it's not worth it. So therefore, we're talking about where they glorify it. Then we're worried that you are going to. Then we're really worried that you are going to follow it. And that's when we say, as soon as you say, "I'll go," you're already chayiv. My love, telling you all these wonderful things. Shema mina is arrive here. Ravashi gives a simple answer. You want to know the two missions? Why our mission says you have to serve and it doesn't? Save for Yisrael Mumma. They're talking about Yisrael Mumma. Or Yisrael who's an apostate. He, as soon as he says he'll go, we trust that he'll go. Our mission is talking about an ordinary person. An ordinary person might do tshuva and not follow the avodah zarah. Ravina says the best answer. They're not arguing at all. The Mishnah is talking about two stages. Loi zu av zuk tani. We find sometimes the Mishnah says a lesser chiddush that he first the Mishnah says if he serves avodah zarah he's chayiv misa. Then the next Mishnah goes a step further. Even if he didn't serve, just the fact that he's saying he's already chayiv, not arguing, he's building up a case. Now we have a fascinating idea. The idea of avodah zarah. What happens if somebody serves avodah zarah not because they accept it as their God, but out of love or out of fear. Out of fear. What exactly means out of fear? Is a machlekes rishonim. Rashi Taisa seems to be learning out of fear means they're just scared they're going to beat you up or something, they're going to hurt you if you don't serve the avodah zarah. That's fear. Like in fact we had in Gemara that if they would have whipped Hanani Mishal Azariah instead of threatening to kill them, they might have succumbed. And avodah zarah, because pain is something that people cannot endure. So that's fear. The Rambam learns fear is fear that this God will do something to you. Now others say that's already believing that it's a real God. It's not just fear. But anyway, so Itman Ovid Avodah Avavir, do it out of fear. Abaye says Chayiv, it's avodah zarah. Rava says Potter. That's not called avodah zarah, and you're not chayiv. Taisa already asked, but l'chayda got three avodas that one has to die for, and one of them is avodah zarah. So what do you mean that you are Potter? So Taisa wants to say that, of course, you have to be prepared to die for it. But if you didn't, we'll treat it as if you're an onus. You didn't do it willingly, and therefore we're not going to punish you for this. Says the Gemara. So Rashi learns love means that you love this person, but not as a god. You love this person. He happens to be a god, and you claim to be a god, and you love this person, so you serve him, but not because you treat him as a god. You treat him as a person that you love. That's how Rashi learns pshat. Says the Gemara. So Itmar Rabbi says Chayiv, Rabbi Potter. The fact is you worshipped him. Rabbi Potter, if you accepted this person as a god, yes. But if not, not. Simon Eved Yishtachel Mashiach. These are three questions. How do I know it's somebody serves Avodah Zarah? Echad Eved, my love, says in our Mishnah whether you served. Why does it say serve and then it nominates a whole bunch of ways of serving? So what's this idea of serving? What way you're serving? It means serving means whether you did it out of love and out of fear. And the next part of the mission is talking about you did it because you try to treat them as a god. So do we say clearly from here that even if you do just out of love and out of fear of the person, but and you're behaving like he's a god, but you're doing it out of love and fear rather than you accept this person as ultimate god. So then you're still chayiv. You're still chayiv. But Rabbi says, "Allah, you know." Because the Torah already answered the before. Oived means we did it conventional way, and then the Mishnah talks about non-conventional ways, the four different ways of serving. Even if it's not the normal way of serving in this particular way, there's other shechting, libations, roasting, or prostrating themselves. You're still chayiv. How do I know time you learned? It says the pasuk, it says, don't bow down to these avodah zarahs. It says, don't bow down to these avodah zarahs. And the Braisa, you could bow down to a person like you, just bow your head down to a person like you. Yochot never come on, even if this person is being worshipped like an avodah zarah as well, you're allowed to bow down. Of them. Don't worship them. You can bow down to them, but don't worship them. So we see now what's Haman? But Haman, the people who worshipped Haman, Meyida have an Evid. Why did they bow down to Haman? They were scared. The king told them they have to bow down. And so we see clearly that what? That even if you're doing it out of fear, not because you really believe the guy's a God, it's still over the Zara. But the Rabbi will answer you, Kahaman v'lo Kahaman, like Haman but not like Haman. Kahaman, the EU goof Kahaman. No, we're using a person here as an example. That even bowing down to a person, if this person treats themselves like a Vedazar, presents themselves to be an idol, you're not allowed to bow down to them. But not exactly like Haman. Kodila Haman Meida. People bow down to Haman out of fear. That's not Haman. But here's not out of fear. So what's Rabbi saying here basically? Haman. People bow down to Haman and they truly treat like a God, but they didn't do it because they believe there's a God. They just did it out of fear. Is not called a Vedazar. So the obvious question is, so why did Mordechai not bow down to Haman? So Taisa says over here, the reason why Mordechai did not bow to Haman is because Haman wore all kinds of Avodah Zarah around his neck. So they were bowing down to Haman, they were really bowing down to real Avodah Zarah. And that was the problem. Mordechai refused. And that, even Yira, is still also because it's real Avodah Zarah. And the second one is, says Taisa, because it's a Kiddush Hashem. And the fact is done in public, and Taisa brings down from Yerushalmi that these two brothers, Papas and Leonis, that were told to drink yain nesach, no wine that was from libations Avodah Zarah, or to pour Avodah Zarah, and really all it was water in a blue in a red glass. But people would it appear as if it's Avodah Zarah, as if it's wine, and they refused. Why? Because the Kiddush Hashem is done in public. So okay, so Gemara said no proof from there. Gemara continues. Said Abai, I'll bring another proof by me. I'll bring another ayah. The Tanya we learned. Mashiach. Quickly, the din is that a person does an avera b'sheigig. You bring a korban chatas. You bring a female chatas. But there are exceptions. A nasi b'yisro, or a kohen gadol. A nasi brings a male chatas, and a kohen gadol, if he does an avera, you bring a b'sheigig. What you do is you bring a bull. What happens when it comes, and that's talking about Helam Dava. You thought that was permitted, you didn't realize it was Asa. Shaygig normally means that you knew it was Asa, but you just didn't know that this was Asa, or you didn't realize that this was the situation. What about Avodah Zarah? Avodah Zarah, we say that a Kohen Gadol brings the same animal like a Yisro. As an individual, they bring the same animal Yisro, which is a female Chatas. So the question is, in that case, does a Kohen Gadol also have the same din as a Yisro, that a Shogeg you bring a Chatas, or does the normal din that go by him, which is it has to be a Helim Dover, that he forgot that this is B'chlau forbidden, and then we did it B'Shogeg, and then he brings that Chatas. So that's the question there. The time we learned Kohen Mashiach, the anointed Kohen, which is only in the first part of the base, the first base of Mikdash, Rebbe says, well, since the korban animal he brings it just like any other Yisrael, so Bishgag is mice will treat him like any other Yisrael. He been a shagig, he didn't realize Avodah Zarah, whatever it is, didn't realize this is a way of Avodah, and he brings a korban chatas. Chachamim say no, behelim davar. That even though the animal itself is like any other Yisrael, but what warrants a Kohen Gadol to bring a korban chatas when it comes to Avodah Zarah, like all other goods, is a helim davar. It has to be a total helim. He didn't realize that it's us. But they all agree that the animal itself that he brings a female and a goat like a korban chatas, like an individual. And they also agree maybe an asham tali, that an asham tali is when you're not sure. Let's say you ate a piece of fat, so you're not sure was this tray for not kosher, so you don't bring korban chatas because you don't know. So therefore, you bring a korban asham even afterwards. So you bring a korban asham tali. A kohen gadol does not bring a asham tali by a yizod if you don't know. And we learn from Sukkim. Now the Gemara wants to know how Shigagas Ma'aser B'Chavim Heichel. What do you mean that the Rebbe says that if he was b'shogig, he brings a korban like at any other Yisrael? What's exactly the shogig? What are we talking about? What's a shogig when it comes to an Avodah Zarah? What didn't he know? Ikasava basic necessity. He walked into this building and he thought it was a shul. And he bowed down there to the walls. I realized this was actually a church. How did he leave Shemaim? What was his intention? He was bowing down to the Eibishter. So it doesn't matter if physically he was standing there. His mind was to the Eibishter. So he's not Ovid Avodah Zarah. He saw a statue. Now, many statues are made just to, a bust of the king to give honor and cover to the king, but also sometimes it's Avodah Zarah. So he saw a statue, thinking that this was merely a way of honoring the king or the governor. And so Manushach, again, if he viewed the statue as an idol, then he bowed down to an idol, and he knew that. So what's the shagig here? And if he didn't think that this was an idol, he thought this was really a bust of the king, then like Lumu, that there's no Avodah Zarah at all. So how do you have a case of shagig by Avodah Zarah? Elalav, it must be me'ava u'meyira. That is talking about that he did avodah zarah, he loved this person, and he thought that since he's doing it out of love of the person, that you're permitted. That's called Ayman Mutter. He thought that that's permitted. In other words, he knew generally, of course, you're not allowed to worship avodah zarah. That he knew, and you're not allowed to do all the different avodas, shechting, all that avodah. He knew that. But so therefore, it's not a helam davar. It's only a shegig. He knew helam davar means he b'chlal didn't know it's an avera. He didn't know avodah zarah existed. He knew avodah zarah existed. The shegig is that you didn't know that it's also if you're doing it out of fear of this person, you'll beat you up, whatever it is, or out of love of this person, and therefore it's because it's a side issue. It's not called helam davar. It's called shegig, and that's what Rebbe is talking about. Rava, so very good. So Rava. How's Rava going to understand the shegi? He holds that if he did it out of love or out of fear, it's not avodah zarah either. So how does he interpret a case of avodah zarah shegi? No, he learns the opposite around. But Ayman Mutter, Rava says, you know what the shegi is? He thought that it's permitted to worship avodah zarah. He thought there's no such thing as avodah zarah in Torah. That's what shegi is. Says the Gemara, what are you talking about? I'm a mutter haina helam davar. We're talking about that it doesn't have to be like an ordinary kohen gadol that has to be helam davar. He thought it's permitted. It has to be like an ordinary person, the shegig. That's what Rebbe says it. But you're telling me, Rava, you're interpreting shegig means he didn't know avodah zarah. That's called helam davar. How can you tell me a case of shegig without helam davar? So he says, ba'ayim mutter is legamri. Ayim mutter is that he thought there's no avodah zarah at all. That's what Ayman Mutter is. And that's what I'm talking about over here. He thought there's no avodah zarah, and that's called a shegig. What's Helm David then? Helm David is Kiyum mitzvah bittul mitzvahs. He knew, for example, that the Torah says avodah zarah, but he didn't realize that shechting an animal is called. He thought avodah zarah maybe means only bowing down. That's what he thought avodah zarah is. He didn't know that there's an Isser Bechlal. He didn't know that a particular detail in the Torah is also an Isser. And that's called Helam Davar. Helam Davar doesn't have to mean that you know the whole Aveda exists. Helam Davar means you knew that it exists, but you didn't know that this part of the Aveda existed. And that's so interesting. So Rava twists around. That Ayman Mutter means he thought there was no Aveda at all. And that's what a Shegig is. And Helam Davar means you knew there's an Aveda Zarah. You just didn't know this particular part of Aveda Zarah is also. Tani Rav Zakkai Kamed Rav Yechon. Rav Zakkai learned before Rav Yechon Zivach. If let's say you did all four avodas, you shechted the kitin, and then you burnt the carbon, and then the nisach, and you poured libations, and then vishtachva, you bowed down. You did four different aspects of avodah zarah. Is it one aveda or is it four avedas? The helamech you did it one go. You only chayv one. You only chayv one aveda because you worship avodah zarah. Amalek puk ton libra. What are you talking about? Toss this brisa on the outside. It's four different avedas.